welcome once again to Real Shame. It's a show where we, us two guys, talk about movies that one of us or both of us haven't seen. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week we're continuing our trend from last week of legal movies, and we're going to talk about a movie I haven't seen. But before we jump into that, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. So, Andy, what have you been watching?
It's all right. So, first off, I watched a movie on, I think it was Hulu, called Buffaloed.
Buffalo.
Have you ever heard of Buffaloed?
I heard of Buffalo Bill.
Okay. That's a start.
Not the same thing?
Not the same thing. So Buffalo is an animal.
Yep.
And it's also a city. And it's also a verb.
Oh, so it's where you can do the...
If you buffalo somebody, you basically intimidate somebody. So Buffaloed is a movie about debt collection.
Interesting.
It stars Zoe Deutsch. She's the daughter of Leah Thompson, actress Leah Thompson.
Okay.
She's been in a few things at this point, but I thought she was really good in this. Ultimately, I thought the movie was pretty good overall. Actually, it loses some steam kind of in the third act, I guess, but I thought it was pretty decent. And not for nothing, Buffalo is a sentence in the English language that actually makes sense.
I was going to ask you if you were going to say that.
But they missed an opportunity. They don't say that sentence in this movie, so it's too bad. But anyway, it's a decent movie. If you have Hulu, I think you could check it out. I watched a movie called...
Is it a recent film?
Maybe 2 years old, something like that, 2019, maybe. I watched a movie on Amazon Prime, which I think just came out, at least as of we're filming now, it just came out, called Bliss.
Yep.
With Salma Hayek and Owen Wilson. Would have been better as a short film, in my opinion. I think it's kind of an interesting take on drug addiction and homelessness, but it goes on, even at, I think it's like 90 minutes, 100 minutes maybe, but it goes on way too long and feels very padded, in my opinion.
Interesting.
And then I will finish with the last thing, because I see it's on your list too.
It is.
It's The Little Things. It's the little things that kill. What is that? The Bush song? Little things.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
It is.
They didn't use that song.
They should have, and it doesn't. The movie takes place in the 90s, doesn't it?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, they have no cell phones, old cars.
Yeah. Oh man, was I paying attention? Probably not, because I thought the movie was extremely dull, and I was very, very bored with it. I did watch it all the way through, but I was like, man, nothing's really happening in this movie.
And
what did you think?
Jared Leto got nominated for like a Golden Globe, I think it was, for it.
Yeah, something like that. Which, I mean, he gives a weird, creepy performance, and his walk is very weird in the movie.
He like drags a leg or something like that. He's only in it for like 15 minutes, I feel like. He's like not in it a whole lot.
I don't know. But I was pretty bored. I didn't think much happened at all in that movie. I don't know about you.
So it's written and directed by John Lee Hancock. It's a movie I watched. I think they were trying to go for like the Seven kind of thing, and maybe it's because I read afterwards, like from other reviewers, they felt that way. But it's okay. It's not. It's forgettable. I think is the worst thing. I
didn't get a 7 vibe from it at all. So if
they
were going for that, they missed badly.
Yeah, but I think they were going for that overall feel and that kind of 90s kind of serial killer kind of drama kind of thing. Maybe like Along Came a Spider. Doing a little bit of the Alex Cross kind of vibe to it. I think it was trying to harken back to those kind of 90s, early 2000 kind of, thrillers like that, serial killer thrillers. But I agree. I don't think it's that great. I think Denzel does a decent job in it. Rami Malek it seems so peculiar. Like he doesn't fit into like this role that you think that he's in, right? Something just seems off with him the whole time, where you thinking that he's could potentially be the killer. But then again, there's really no, as soon as you meet Jared Leto's character, he's the killer. Like there's no mystery about it. Did you have any, were you ever unsure of who actually was the person killing it? Or do you remember?
I thought that was kind of ambiguous though in the movie. I mean, I don't want to give too much of it away. It's a new movie. I don't want to spoil it or whatever, but we could talk about it later. But I just found it very forgettable. I know that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, like I said, I don't think anyone does a great performance in it. I mean, Denzel is Denzel, so he brings a lot to even the crappiest roles, and
Yeah.
I'm with you. It's just kind of, it's middling, and it's kind of milquetoast, and just kind of mediocre, and just, it's ultimately forgettable, I think.
Big time.
Um,
What movie were we talking about? I don't even remember.
yeah,
now.
exactly. It was talking about some Bush song, I remember, right?
Oh yeah. Glycerine.
Glycerine.
There's some movie called
Yeah,
Glycerine.
It's about nitroglycerin. It's like the last thing I watched, since we kind of overlap there, was The Stuff. I'm sure some people have seen a lot of the clips online about some of the craziness that happens to people when they consume the stuff or consumed by the stuff. It is wacky, but ultimately, like, it's just so, if I didn't, I don't think the craziness of it made it worth watching, because I think there's too many lulls between these crazy gags or these crazy things that happen. So for me, I was more bored with it than I was kind of captivated by this zaniness. Now to contrast that, Kirby got a huge kick out of it, and she thought it was the best thing. So I personally was kind of towards the whole movie, but she had a lot of fun of it. So I guess with that one, your mileage may vary. And we talked about it, but that's a movie you haven't seen yet.
No, I still need to watch it.
I think that's on Amazon Prime Video, so I think that's free to stream if you have a Prime account.
Nice.
But yeah, not a whole lot of what I've been watching this week. So let's get into our main review, and that movie's going to be
The Verdict.
The Verdict. All right.
Frank Galvin is an alcoholic, washed-up lawyer who has been reduced to loitering at funeral wakes in an effort to procure bereaved clients for his fledgling law practice. He happens upon a medical negligence case that he believes that he can win. So rather than take a guaranteed settlement of $210,000, he resolves to try the case in court in The Verdict.
What the hell's going on here? What have you been doing? I got a call from Sally Donahue.
Who's that?
You're supposed to be in court in 10 days, and she said you haven't even met with them yet.
Sally Donahue, who is that?
One lousy letter in 18 months. I tried to throw a case your way, and look at you. Frankie, I got these people to trust you. They're gonna be here at noon, by the way. Look at this shit. I got this expert doctor to talk to you. Remember his name? Dr. Gruber? It's been 18 months, and I've been doing all the fucking legwork. You're supposed to be in court in less than 2 weeks, and I bet you haven't even looked at the goddamn file.
What are you, my nanny?
Now listen to me, Frankie. Frankie, listen to me, because I'm done fucking with you. I can't take this anymore. I mean, you're not going to change. Look around you. I mean, what's going to change? You think it's going to be any different next week, next month? It's going to be the same goddamn thing. I got you a good case. It's a moneymaker. You do it right, it'll take care of you. But I'm through, you understand? I mean, I can't take this shit anymore.
All right, The Verdict was directed by Sidney Lumet. Of course, Sidney Lumet is a very illustrious filmmaker, done a lot of classic films, so we won't go into his filmography. But he did do one film in particular, which deals with a court case that is an extremely classic film, and that is 12 Angry Men. Usually winds up on a lot of top 10 lists, top 50 lists, top 100 lists, whatever. But it's a very, very classic film. It was written by Mr. David Mamet. He's the guy that brought you things like Glengarry Glen Ross, The Spanish Prisoner, Red Belt, Heist, some other stuff. He adapted it from a book by a guy named Barry Reed that was written in 1980. So The Verdict itself came out in December of 1982. And you know what? that means when movies come out in November, December, Oscar bait.
Even back in the 80s?
Even back in the 80s, yeah.
Cool.
This movie was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. We'll talk about that towards the end. Stars Paul Newman as Frank Galvin, Charlotte Rampling as Laura Fisher, Jack Warden as Mickey Morrissey, who's Frank's trusted buddy and kind of legal partner in a way. We saw him in While You Were Sleeping. He played Saul. Also has Joe Seneca, who was in The Blob. He played Dr. Meadows in The Blob, and in this movie he plays Dr. Thompson.
He's typecast as doctors.
Yeah, he is. Let's see, James Mason. He has that very particular way of speaking. He plays Ed Kincannon. He's like the rival lawyer. He's for the defense because they're getting sued. He has a team of lawyers underneath him. And then finally, we've got Lindsay Krause, who plays a pivotal role as Caitlin Costello Price towards the end of the film. She was actually married to David Mamet at the time, and they have a daughter named, spelled Zosiah, which to me sounds like it would be Zosiah, but it's Zasha. Zasha Mamet, she is an actress now, and if you watch, I know currently on HBO Max, if you watch the Flight Attendant show with Kaylee Cuoco, she plays Kaylee Cuoco's best friend lawyer in that movie, or in that TV show, sorry. And as extras in the final courtroom scene of the verdict, when Paul Newman is giving his closing arguments, his summation, you can look and see Bruce Willis and Tobin Bell sitting very close to each other. And Tobin Bell, if you don't know him by name, is the guy that played Jigsaw in the Saw movies. So they're sitting very close together. So keep an eye out for them if you watch this film. All right, so I've seen this movie. Once again, I think this is the third time. Third time's a charm. Third time that I've seen this movie. You've never seen it.
Never seen it.
And I think this was a movie that someone suggested to us in the comments to one of our videos.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
It was either The Verdict or The Vanishing. I thought I knew it begins with
I think it was Verdict. So thank you for suggesting it. And if you have any other suggestions, all of you out there, please leave them in the comments.
Yep, leave us comments. Shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com.
And if one of us hasn't seen it, we'll do it on a Monday. If both of us happen to have seen it, we'll do it on a Wednesday. Wednesday, all bets are off. We do movies on Wednesday that possibly the both of us have already seen. But anyway, this is a Monday movie, so it's one you haven't seen.
That's right.
So give us, what's your verdict
on The Verdict?
On The Verdict.
So I like me a good legal drama, a good legal thriller.
Don't we all?
We've seen Few Good Men. We've seen, My Cousin Vinny. We've seen Legally Blonde. I think with this movie was very slow, and that kind of took a lot of my enjoyment out of watching this movie. I think it's well done and it's well shot, of course, because it's Sidney Lumet. But ultimately, I feel like a lot of the movie just felt like it just was like this kind of grueling, in its slowness of kind of a pace, right? And so that kind of just made me just not as interested in it and not as warm to it as I thought. I don't know if that's because of its time, if it's because it's an early 80s kind of movie and that's just the way the pace of those kind of movies were or not. But when I think about like legal thrillers, they feel like they have a faster pace, and and also this movie kind of minimizes, I feel like, a lot of the trial, right? Like we don't spend, I feel like with like Pelican Brief and, well, maybe not the Pelican Brief, but like the Rain Man and like, you think of these John Grisham kind of legal movies, and you think of like, A Few Good Men, they spend a lot of time in the courtroom trial of Chicago 7. You spend a lot of time in the courtroom, and I feel like the courtroom takes up the bulk of the movie, but this movie feels like that is like, only the last third or last quarter of the movie, right? It doesn't spend as much time in the legal courtroom of the drama, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Do you feel that way?
Makes sense. I don't agree.
Okay.
It makes sense.
So that's how I kind of came off with it. I just felt like it was really slow, and I wanted more kind of in the trial, seeing the trial go on, and less of the stuff leading up to the trial. Because But let's toss it, before we get into any more detail, let's toss it over to you and see how you what's your verdict on The Verdict?
I think this movie is terrific. I as I was watching it this time, and you and I have had this conversation before, I agree with you that I do think the pace is slower.
Yeah.
I don't want to say slow necessarily because I think that it has like a negative connotation. But I mean, I agree. If you make a movie like this nowadays, you would not make it the same way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have the long pauses or the long takes or anything like that. You'd have a lot flat. And I wrote down some of my notes. There's parts of the movie where the camera just sits there. Yeah. And nowadays you wouldn't. You'd have it has to cut over here. It has to because we've got to keep people engaged. We've got to keep people interested in what we're doing. Again, I think a lot of people, you go back and you look at older movies like this, and they do have a quote unquote, slower pace, because nowadays we just live in the age of, instant gratification and TikTok and things that are, bite sized and very quick. And I, I'm the same way. I mean, I get impatient sometimes when I'm scrolling through a site or whatever, like, oh, I don't want to watch that. It's too long. That video's too long or something like that. But I think this movie, it does have a slower pace, but I have always felt like this movie, the plot is so gripping to me, the story is so gripping to me that I don't care. Like the movie's maybe 5 minutes over 2 hours or something like that, but I don't feel like it's long. I'm actually really, really intrigued by the story and really, really hooked by the story. And I've seen it before, but I couldn't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, I couldn't remember kind of the big reveal that when he brings in the Lindsay Krause character, Caitlin Price, kind of what she says or what. I was like, now wait a minute, what does she do again? And then when she does, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of thing.
It's interesting because I feel like it's kind of like the story and stuff, like the fact that he's like an alcoholic, he can't get his life together, and then he kind of rallies together for this case. Like I feel like that is something that's been tread on a whole bunch. So it's interesting. So to me, that when that happened, I didn't roll my eyes, but I was kind of like, oh, this is what we're in the.
I mean, it may not be the most original movie, but I still find the story very, very interesting. Like what happens in it.
Interesting.
Just the different plot mechanics or whatever in it.
That's that's the reason why I asked, because I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
You talked about was it Caitlin Price? No.
Caitlin Price.
Caitlin Price coming in. Mm-hmm. So for me, I felt like they undercutted that a whole lot. Like I feel like it wasn't. I feel like her reveal, it didn't build to that. It wasn't like the tip or the peak of the story. It felt to me like they kind of just played it, just kind of like. What am I trying to say? I just feel like they underplayed the whole thing of her kind of reveal. Like to me, it didn't. To me, when I was watching the movie, what she said, the movie didn't make a big deal out of it to me. Like, it seemed like the movie was just treating it like any other character or any other kind of thing that's testimony has happened. But I felt like if this was a more modern movie, that would have been played up really big and, like, the music would have swelled or, it would have slow-moed into it. I don't know, something like that. Just to me, it just felt like they played it, they, like, underplayed it a whole lot. Do you get that from watching it?
No, because when she finally says, so obviously we spoil things. Yeah. She finally they spent the other nurse has spent a lot of time trying to shield her, and basically that she doesn't want to be found, so she's moved away. So he has to go and find her working at this children's like nursery school or something, children's school, and convince her to come back with him and testify. And so whenever she testifies, basically, they admitted a patient. So the whole crux of the story is there's a medical malpractice suit or negligence suit because they've admitted a patient that they administered a lethal or an anesthetic to that they shouldn't have. Yeah. And so she ends up vomiting in her mask and her heart stops and they take a while to resuscitate her. So she's got brain damage. So she's alive, but she's stuck in a hospital bed, like hooked up to a ventilator or whatever. And the admitting nurse, when she came in, wrote down that she had only eaten 1 hour before the procedure, which is a no-no anyway. And they had her change it after the fact to 9 hours. She put a circle on the one.
I think they changed it.
Well, they changed it. Or she changed it. Somebody changed it, but she had made a copy
of the original.
Of it. So she has it. So that's the big reveal kind of in the movie when James Mason is over there kind of grilling her. She's like, no, I have a copy right here. And he's like, or whatever.
Because I thought the reveal was going to be, I wrote a 1, not a 9.
Well, I mean that's also kind of a reveal, but he's like, why would you? How do you know this? Like, how can you remember this? And she's like, oh, well, I have a copy right here. And he's like, you
can't admit that.
And so then he scrambles to find some kind of legal precedent to where they can throw that out, and they do get it thrown out, and because the judge hates Paul Newman, he's got it in for Paul Newman. So the judge is like, yeah, the jury is instructed that none of her testimony
which
is good,
never
is
works.
Okay. Well, true, it never works.
In movies, I don't know.
Strike
about
that
life.
from your mind. Yeah, it's like, how can you do that? How can I? What Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? What are we going to erase that part of it? No, but yeah, he tells them like, you're instructed not to take her comments into account. Yeah, right. Realistically, you can't do that. But no, I mean, again, I feel like this movie is gripping. I feel like this story is gripping, even though it is a slower pace. Again, probably because it's an older movie or whatever, but what else was I going to say? Oh, the parts. So I really like the movie a lot. The parts for me that don't work is honestly the Charlotte Rampling character, his love interest in the film, because you find out ultimately that she's working for Kincannon, and that almost amounts to nothing, pretty much.
I mean, I don't get that from the movie, because I do think like his star witness disappears, right? So there's things that happen to his case because he's with her and stuff like that. Now, there's no like interpersonal. I mean, you kind of end on the movie with them ringing each other and not answering the phone, right?
She's trying to call him drunkenly trying to call
So
him.
I do think she does have some mechanic. Kirby had it out for her from the beginning, thinking that she was no good, and maybe because Kirby's seen the movie before, or maybe she didn't, but she knew something was up with her. I thought his partner was going to be the guy, because they're in the movie, Ed Concannon, how do you say his name?
The Kincannon?
Yeah, he said that he has someone on the inside, right? So at that point, you're like, oh, okay, who's it going to be? So I always thought it was the guy who gave him the case. He gave Paul Newman the case, like his friend, because his friend seemed kind of like not wanting to help, kind of wanted to help. He seemed very reluctant to kind of do this thing. But so that all being said, I do like her role in the movie, and I do think it's a very interesting reveal when he hands the drink to her and it kind of like pans around and then you kind of see her, right? I thought that worked for me.
Yeah, to me it doesn't work, and I think the reason why is because when they're flying back, so he has to go find Caitlin Price
in
in
New York,
Boston, or not? They're in Boston. I forget where he goes.
New York.
Okay, he goes to New York to find her. That's right. And when he's flying back with the Jack Warden character with Mickey, he talks about like she's a mole basically, and he's like, how much did she hurt us legally? And Frank is just like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like it's like, I don't really know. Like, to me, they underplay that. Like, I don't feel like they do enough with that aspect of the story. But yeah, that's interesting. We have such wildly different takes on the movie. But no, I really do like this movie. There's a particular scene. Again, there's a lot of like static camera, whereas nowadays I feel like you'd have the camera kind of moving all over the place. I mean, I guess depending on who directed the film. But there's the part where I think it is after his star witness does disappear. So he has a doctor that's agreed to testify. He's like, yeah, those doctors didn't know what they were doing. They killed her. I'll be happy to testify. Meet me here at 7 p.m. and you can get my deposition. And that guy disappears. I don't, like, I'm not convinced that it's the Charlotte Rampling character that gave Kincannon that information, because I feel like she comes along a little bit later. I could just be misremembering it, but I felt like she came along too late to have done that. Like, I felt like Kincannon just got a hold of that guy, because I mean, everybody knows who was in the operating room or who was there or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it was Charlotte Rampling that did it. Maybe she's the one that fed
I think when he tells the guy to meet him, the guy's going to go take the train to somewhere and they're going to meet the following day. I think, Paul Newman's character goes to the bar that night, and that's when he meets her, and then they go back to his room. So I think...
Well, the first night he meets her, they don't get together. It's later. It's like the next night. So that's why I thought... And you don't ever really see her looking through his information. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the thing that bothers me the most. You don't really see her looking through his files, and you don't... basically when they're together, they're just drinking and doing the nasty, I guess. You don't really see them.
Yeah.
You don't really see him talking legal strategy with her. So then I'm like, well, what is she giving Concannon? Like,
Well,
how does she know? I think you may see him tell her a few things, but nothing of real substance.
Because there's something at the bar when they're talking about legal stuff, and then she's like, "Oh, my ex-husband was a lawyer,"
right?
And then he talks about some legal stuff there.
Okay.
But it's interesting that we kind of both do that. I do wish that we kind of saw from outside Paul Newman's perspective what actually happened to the doctor if it was, Ed Concannon getting a hold of him and putting him on a plane to, some resort where he can't answer or whatever. Like I think that would have made the movie a little bit better in my opinion if they kind of had that one scene.
So you want to see what happened to the doctor?
Yeah, or just like kind of explain it or have them talk about it and stuff like that.
I just think it's funny that he goes to meet him and the guy's not there and he's like, "Fuck, Concannon got to him."
Yeah.
Like, what can we do?
But
now my star witness disappeared, and then he goes to see the judge like at his house, and the judge is like,
"Nope,
sorry."
Yeah.
Closes the door. Yeah. I hate you. Basically.
The other thing is, and I think this is more of a modern sensibility, looking at this movie, is I feel like we're kind of hit over the head a little bit with Paul Newman's, I guess, alcoholism. I don't know if he drinks a lot. So I think the movie goes through great pains to kind of show us again that he's constantly drinking. And at, some point I was like, yeah, I get the point. I get the idea. Like, he's not a very good lawyer. He'd rather be half in the bag than practicing law. Like, I get it. We don't need to see him like constantly playing the pinball at the bar, constantly being at the bar. Like, for me, I felt like it got a little excessive there towards the end. But again, I feel like maybe it's more modern sensibilities that they would kind of truncate that to a few scenes to kind of get the point across versus what happened before. But I mean, I said all these things, and it's not like I thought it was a bad movie or anything. Yeah. It's just, like I said, there's like, I didn't get that thrill of the legalness from watching the movie. And and it might have been, the pace or whatever. It just didn't kind of like, because like I said, I like these legal movies. I can list off a bunch that I just kind of get a thrill out of and I enjoy watching. And unfortunately, this was one of those that I thought was good, but it didn't really kind of like spark with me,
Yeah. I like the fact that it's more understated and it doesn't have a lot of flash to it. I do think the performances are roundly good, across the board good. Paul Newman, I think, is great. Jack Warden is great. James Mason is always great. Bruce Willis and Tobin Bell as extras, they're really great.
Yeah.
They just sit there.
I mean, someone looked at them as the extras and was like, "You guys are going to be stars. You're going to be stars, kids."
Right. But yeah, no. So I was going to say there's one scene in particular. Well, of course, there's the closing summation at the end, which is again just a static camera. I think it zooms in at one point, but it doesn't move. It doesn't dolly anywhere or anything like that. It doesn't move side to side because it's more about the words. I feel like we haven't really mentioned this. We did mention that it was written by David Mamet. I feel like it's really well written. Quite honestly, I do. I like the dialogue in it. His closing argument is very passionate. And I think it's more effective because it's just a single shot. It doesn't cut around to him talking. But there's the one scene that really stands out for me is once he does lose his star witness, he's like, I'm going to try and get the settlement still, even though they've told him once he walks out the door, the settlement's off the table. But there's a scene where they're in his office, and I think the only lighting in there is just like a lamp on his desk. And you've got him at one side of the desk talking on the phone, trying to get a hold of the archdiocese or whoever to tell them, no, I want to take the settlement. And meanwhile, Jack Warden is on the other side of the desk kind of looking through some paperwork and kind of doing whatever. And the camera is down basically on the floor. It's like a rat's eye view or something. But it's just stationary. And the scene probably goes on for, 5 or 7 minutes with just him trying to talk to the end. We decided we do want to take the settlement. I told my clients it's not a good idea. He's clearly lying or whatever. But again, because it's the drama that is what's important. It's not flashy camera work. It's nothing like that. But I think this movie is chock full of a lot of little moments like that. That's just one that kind of stood out to me, along with his kind of closing summation. And again, I think the performances are really good. So. Yeah, but yes, it is slower than A Few Good Men or My Cousin Vinny or any of the other courtroom movies that we've done recently. And by modern standards, I could see watching it how some people might be like, it's a little languid. But I find it very, very enthralling. Okay. So he was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, but that was the year that Gandhi steamrolled everybody. You thought Gandhi was a peaceful guy, but he just obliterated the competition at the
Took out all those
1983
MFers.
the 1983 Academy Awards. Paul Newman was nominated for Best Actor, but he lost to Ben Kingsley, who played Gandhi. Sidney Lumet was nominated for Best Director, but he lost to Richard Attenborough, who directed Gandhi. Best Picture it was nominated for, but it lost to Gandhi. And then the only 2 awards that it was nominated for that it lost, but not to Gandhi, was James Mason was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but he lost to Louis Gossett Jr. For An Officer and a Gentleman. And it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. David Mamet was nominated, but he lost to a movie called Missing with Jack Lemmon.
Did you look at all the other Best Pictures for this year?
Not besides this and Gandhi, no.
Okay. Between this and Gandhi, which movie do you like more?
This movie, by far. I've only seen Gandhi once, and it's been... I was probably a teenager when I saw Gandhi, so I doubt that I appreciated it very much. It's also like 3 hours long, so it's a movie that if I do watch it again, I should watch it again. I'm going to have to set some time aside to watch it. Maybe we'll do it on the show one day.
Yeah. I think I've seen clips of it in school, but I don't think I've actually seen the whole movie of Gandhi.
I mean, as a teenager, whenever I saw it, I remember thinking it was pretty good, but I probably didn't understand it, or I just didn't appreciate it probably as a youngster. It's 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The Verdict, that is, not Gandhi. I don't know what Gandhi is on Rotten Tomatoes, but this movie, The Verdict, is 88% fresh, 88% audience score. So they're the same. It got 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert, and Leonard Maltin didn't give it 3 stars. He gave it 4.
Oh,
the highest rating Leonard Maltin gave. 4 stars. Yeah. So
all right.
The movie that you paired it with.
Yeah, so no, you
or
paired
that
it.
I paired with. I'm like,
I was confused. I was so confused.
Hey, I'm like the movie that I paired it with. What am I saying? I'm so lost. I ate too much food before we started filming. Okay, so the movie that I paired it with. So this is a Sidney Lumet courtroom film. I decided to do another Sidney Lumet courtroom film, and it's one that he did towards the end of his.
It's not the one you're thinking about, or the one we mentioned earlier.
It's not 12 Angry Men.
Even though I still haven't seen that.
This is we'll have to do that one. But this was one with it's newer, 2006, and it's got Vin Diesel with hair. This time. Yeah, that's right. Vin Diesel with hair, and it is called Find Me Guilty. And I paired it. He didn't pair it. I paired it. So
blame Andy.
Yeah, that's going to be next time.
Or blame me, whatever.
Next time on Real Shame. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was The Verdict. If you feel like Andy about The Verdict, leave a comment below. Or if you feel like me about The Verdict, leave a comment below. We'd be interested to see where you guys land on The Verdict. We also answer viewers' questions on our Wednesday episodes. So on the Find Me Guilty, we will hopefully answer a viewer's question. So you can shoot those questions to our email address, realshame@gmail.com. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment that down below too. We'll capture there. That is super cool. Like, share, subscribe, do all that social media stuff because it really does help spread the news of the show and the word of the show. And we really appreciate it. And speaking of social media, we're on Instagram @RealShame. So you can follow us there. And stay tuned next time when we dive into Sidney Lumet's next film or another Sidney Lumet film. And that's going to be Find Me Guilty. We'll see you soon, guys. Thanks. Bye.